Have you ever faced a game of 40k where it just feels freaking impossible to win? Maybe your opponent's army just has hard counters to yours, or you've made like early mistakes and then it just seems impossible to recover from. There's a new strategy you've never seen before, and it is just inconceivable that you're ever going to beat it. Well, listen, there's almost no such thing as a no-win situation. And today, what we're going to do is break down how to think through these problems in Warhammer 40,000, how to stay adaptable, and how to turn bad situations into victories. Now, just like every single video, it's going to be impossible for me to cover every single scenario. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is a way of thinking that you're going to need to apply to all of your games individually. I'm going to be giving you examples, and I'm going to be giving you thoughts, but you're going to have to take this thinking, this style of thinking, and apply it to yourself so that you can handle any scenario you come across. Because I promise you, it does not matter how many YouTube videos I make, I will never cover every single possible combination scenario that you could ever face. So today I'm going to teach you how to freaking problem solve in Warhammer 40,000. So the first step to solving problems is understanding what the freaking problem is. Like when you're facing a gun line, guys, most people will identify the wrong problem. So what they are thinking is that, okay, I have this really powerful gun line that's in front of me, and they've got incredible shooting, and anytime they shoot me, I just instantaneously die. They have too much firepower. So they think the problem is that their enemies have too much firepower and they shoot too hard. That's not the problem, though. The problem isn't that your opponent has amazing shooting, it's that you are getting shot. So first step to making sure that we can solve problems is identifying what the actual problem is. Now that we've identified that the problem isn't how strong their shooting is, the problem is that you're getting shot. How do we solve that? Well, you've got a lot of methods to solve that problem. One, you can stand behind cover. Boom, can't be seen, can't be shot. Two, you can get in melee with your enemies, which will decrease their shooting. It'll make it so other units can't shoot you, and it'll make it that they can't shoot blast guns into you. It'll make it so that their big shooting unit has to fall back. All sorts of things that you can do. Three, you can just stage and make sure that if they are going to shoot you, they're going to have to put themselves in a really bad position to shoot you. All of those work really, really well for handling this amazing shooting gun line. You just got to think of it in a different way. There is another way that you could consider how to survive that shooting, by the way. If the problem is that they've got amazing shooting, and then you've identified that the real problem is that you're getting shot, maybe you have a unit in your army that can just deal with it. Maybe you have something that can handle the shooting. Maybe you have a unit of Canoptic Wraiths that are right next to a Catacomb Command Barge that are also right next to a Reanimator. Maybe you can handle all of the shooting. That would also be a solution to the problem of getting shot, right? You don't care if that unit gets shot. Maybe you have a unit, say a Venerable Dreadnought, that when your opponent shoots it, you don't care if it gets shot because at the end of the phase, you're going to roll a dice, and on a 2-up, it's going to stand up. So you have also solved the problem of getting shot, right? This is it. So basically what you need to identify is it a bad matchup? Are you behind on points? Did your key unit get destroyed early? Is your opponent locking you in your deployment zone? What is the problem? And then we will go from there. If your key unit got destroyed early, well, that might be an issue, but luckily in the list building stage, what we've done is we've created redundancies in our list building stage to make sure that you have backups for that, right? If your opponent is locking you in your deployment zone, well, what we have learned is that, all right, we need to have an infiltration unit, or we need to deploy in such a way that you can't lock me in my deployment zone, right? These are the things that you're going to learn, and these are the things that you're going to apply. So first step to understanding the problem, identify the actual problem, not the reactive problem that you might think it really is. It's just incredibly important to stay calm and approach this game logically. Otherwise, you're going to suffer. Let's go to the second step. All right, second step, we are going to be finding your win condition. So you got to reframe these situations. I'm going to give you guys a mindset shift, okay? So instead of thinking, oh, I'm losing, what I want you to do is ask yourself, what does my opponent need to do to win, and how do I stop them from doing it? Or you could ask yourself, what do I need to do to win? And what does my opponent have to do to stop me from winning? This is a very, very important thing, especially in a game of 40,000 where you don't win because you killed your opponent's army. You win because you scored more primary and you scored more secondary than your opponent did. You win because you scored 41 points and your opponent scored 40 points. That's how you win, right? So we need to reframe everything, okay? Once you're in a bad position and you're losing or you're down on points, you have to identify, well, how can I catch up on points? That is what I need you guys to start thinking about when it comes to problem solvings. You don't have to wipe your opponent's army. You just got to hold more objectives. You just got to score more secondary. You just have to do more things that will generate you more victory points than your opponent. Denying victory points. Oh my gosh, this is one of the biggest things. I've done entire series on denying victory points. Denying victory points can be just as valuable as scoring your own victory points. If I am going to end the game with 60 victory points, and say it's not a really high scoring game, I only get 60, guess what? I win if you have 55. If I end the game with 80 victory points and you have 85 victory points, you win. So it doesn't matter how many victory points I have. What matters is how many victory points I have in relation to you. So I find an essential skill to this game is denying your opponent victory points, whether that is standing on a circle with more OC than your opponent has, whether that is screwing your opponent and sticking them with a secondary. Say they were doing recover assets and you were able to kill one of the units that was performing recover assets. So now in their next turn, they're stuck with recover assets. They don't get to draw a new card. These are different things that you can do to really swing the score. All right, let's break problems down into smaller pieces. This is actually a very important strategy to do, right? Because sometimes when you see the huge issues that you're presented with, it can just feel overwhelming. So we're going to break these little pieces into smaller pieces, and then we're little bite-sized pieces, and we're going to devour them one at a time. In Warhammer 40,000, we're not trying to find one single perfect move. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do a series of little small steps that add up to one massive game plan that is going to crush our opponent's souls. So how do we break down complex board states into manageable decisions? Well, you get different steps, right? You've got short steps, short-term steps, you get intermediate term steps, you've got mid-term steps, long-term steps. So what is the best move for this turn? The best piece of advice I think that I give literally every single client, and I can say this because I'm pretty sure I've given this advice to every single client, regardless of skill level or experience level. We got super major winners, we've got brand new players. Okay, I still give the exact same advice. At the beginning of a turn, what I do is I pause for about 1 to 2 minutes and I look at the board state and I go, okay, so what do I need to achieve this turn? Well, I have to have a unit that's standing in the center of the board, and I have to kill my opponent's unit that's standing in the center of the board. This is going to score me area denial. It's going to deny my opponent primary, and it's going to kill one of my opponent's units. So after everything else is said and done, I do have to accomplish that. Then what I do is every single time I start making a movement in my movement phase, I ask myself, how is this helping me achieve the goal that I have to achieve? And until I have achieved, or at least gotten myself positioned to achieve the goal, I don't do anything else. And that way, I don't do dumb shit that just screws me over. I always do things that are focused on achieving my goal. Then you can look at midterm goals. So what is my path to staying in this game? Well, I know that I'm playing Scorched Earth, so I don't need to stand on 3 circles. It's okay for me to stand on 2 circles, which means I don't need to expose myself in the center unless there is a secondary draw that requires me to do so. Or perhaps I'm playing supply drop and I went second. I don't care about scoring primary early, whereas my opponent has to score primary early. All I care is about standing on the supply drop at the end of battle round 5. So I can slow play it. I can allow my opponent to get a lead if it means that at the end of the game, I have enough resources left to claim the supply drop objective. So your midterm thing is, what is my path to staying in the game? And that kind of coincides a lot of times with your long-term strategies. Is it okay for me to get behind and allow my opponent to take a lead? If I'm playing against orcs, for example, I can't let them take a lead because their entire game plan is to take a huge lead and then get tabled in battle rounds 4 and 5 where you can't catch up, right? So what is the problem your opponent is presenting you with, and how are you going to address it? You've got midterm, intermediate, long-term goals here, and just pause at the beginning of every single battle round and think for 2 minutes. This is going to speed your gameplay up as well because you're not going to be humming and hawing over like, if I do this, then this. It doesn't matter. You're just going to achieve the main goals that you need to achieve and let the rest of the pieces fall into place. All right. Thinking flexibly. This is adjusting on the fly. No plan survives contact with an enemy. Why adaptability is key. More eloquently put by the eternal Mike Tyson is, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. How are you going to quickly reassess strategy after unexpected movements? Well, my best unit just got wiped. Oh, okay. Now, let's say that it's my go turn, and I am sending Dante with 6 Sanguinary Guard, and I'm sending him into one whatever unit that's guaranteed to die, and it doesn't die. Oh, okay, well, how do I recover now? because I can pretty much guarantee one thing's going to happen is that Dante's squad is going to die in my opponent's turn because he's going to position all of his shooting, all of his charging, all these things. Well, now I might have to realize that I can no longer kill the units that I want to kill. So I have to shift into a different mindset for my game. Now, instead of trying to table my opponent, I go into how do I delay my opponent and how do I get points. Now I'm much more focused on denying my opponent's primaries. Now I'm much more focused on stopping his secondaries and increasing my secondaries and not so focused on killing his units, right? So these are things that you have to be able to adapt to on the fly because sometimes bad stuff happens. The game just doesn't go as expected. So you got to be able to shift your opponents or shift your focus. You got to develop a tactical toolbox to respond to certain problems. So there are movement tricks that can escape bad positioning. Let's say that I'm screwed and I have to go score area denial with this one vehicle, and that's the only thing that can do it. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this vehicle in such a position that it's right next to a wall. So if my opponents kill or destroy my vehicle, the contents can disembark behind cover. Right? So you do these little movement tricks, right? You put yourself in certain positions that allows you to grab the board in ways that your opponent may not expect. Sometimes you can strategically sacrifice your units just to slow your opponent. I've shown this in move blocking abilities, in move blocking videos all the freaking time. When I say, hey, you know what? Turn one, I'm just going to advance my scout squad, which was already infiltrated and already did their scout move, and I'm going to stand them 1.1 inches in front of your tank line. You're going to kill him, but guess what? You don't get to move turn one. I didn't kill anything of yours, but still, my 70-point unit basically said you don't get a turn one movement phase. This is very, very strong, and it's only going to happen if you see these opportunities and you grab them. So you got to learn how to think a little bit flexibly. All right. I guess just got one more for you guys here. You need to learn to see the opportunities that other people are missing. So experienced players see the board differently than new players. So you need to train your brain just to look for different things, right? You need to look for overextended enemy units. When my opponent's unit is standing in a certain position, how can I strike that unit without exposing my own units, right? How can I get a disembark that allows me to gain an extra 3 inches of movement that gets me in a position my opponent just wasn't ready for? Where can I rapid ingress that's going to screw up my entire opponent's game plan? Like if my opponent is trying to get a area denial and he destroys my transport, can I get a unit out within 6 inches of the center? So now my opponent only scores 2 victory points on area denial instead of 5 victory points in area denial. These are things that you're going to have to train your brain to look for. So you want to look for overextended enemy units. You want to look for, well, we've kind of already talked earlier about turn 5 scoring opportunities, like what they are. Planning for how do you score in later turns, not just early turns. Where are the places that movement can win games more than killing units? This is very critical. This is the move blocking concept, right? I am going to just put my model on, I'm going to put my 40-point Gretchen unit on the objective that the warden for the custodian squad is standing on. Guess what? I'm not killing that warden squad, but my 40-point Gretchen unit is going to nullify your wardens and say you don't get to score primary because of where I'm standing. And also, none of your vehicles can move through this pathway now because of where my models are. So I need everyone to give themselves a mindset shift. Instead of wondering how well I need to roll to succeed, how can you position yourself so that dice just don't really matter? I don't need to roll a single dice to stop you from scoring primary. All I got to do is put my models on an objective that have more OC than the models that you have on your objective have OC. And then you don't score points. And guess what? You're going to have to use units to kill my units that you don't want to use because you want to use them to be doing actions or you want to be focusing on more valuable units. But you got to kill my models that are standing on your circles. Very, very important. So just as a quick recap, let's go through this stuff. Here we go. You got to identify the core issue. Many, many times you think that you are facing a problem and you're really not facing a problem. You're not identifying the actual problem. The problem isn't the killing power. The problem is that they're killing you. So you can just stand in different places or you can use different stratagems to make it so that they can't freaking kill you. Let's say you've got a really horrifying unit that is going to be coming at you. Dante with Sangard, for example, but you have a -1 damage strat. Well, guess what? That squad doesn't kill Angron when Angron is -1 damage. Boom, you've answered the problem. So then what you do is you reframe problems. What does my opponent need to do? If your opponent, say, needs to kill X unit, just don't let them kill X unit. Doesn't matter. If your opponent needs to stand in the center and have nothing of yours in the center, well, how do you get one of your units in the center? Break the game into small, winnable moments and stay adaptable. There is almost always a way back in the game. If you find yourself in a position where there is no way back in the game, then what you do is you use that as a learning moment so that in your future games, you never end up in that scenario again. So guys, that's it. That's the video for today. What I want to hear from you, what's the toughest situation you've ever fought your way out of in 40K? I want to know down in the comments. I'm really interested. I have fought my way out of some seriously tough situations, and I failed to fight my way out of some tough situations, but I've learned each time that I failed. So with that, I'm going to end it. Hope this helps you. You got to learn how to think flexibly, guys. We can't think laterally like most people want to. We want to think flexibly so that we can counter and overcome our opponents. All right, guys, I'm out. Happy prepping. Bye-bye.